My fellow Albertans, tonight I wish to speak with you about the debate we are having in this province on the future of Alberta and Canada. Last week, an Alberta judge released a decision finding that the citizen petition organized by the group Stay Free Alberta on the issue of Alberta separation is unconstitutional because, in the judge's view, there was not adequate consultation done with the First Nations band about the potential effect of the petition on their treaty rights. This ruling fundamentally misinterprets the nature of the duty to consult, which was never meant to prevent citizens from making their voices heard through a democratic process. Now, I want to be clear. I support Alberta remaining in Canada. That is how I would vote on separation in a provincial referendum. It is also the position of my government and my caucus. However, despite my personal support for remaining in Canada, I am deeply troubled by an erroneous court decision that interferes with the democratic rights of hundreds of thousands of Albertans. Albertans who volunteered, prepared petitions, made their case to fellow citizens, and appear to have secured the required amount of signatures necessary under Alberta law to hold a provincial referendum. The fact is that between the Forever Canada petition requesting a referendum on Alberta remaining in Canada and the Stay Free Alberta petition requesting a referendum on leaving Canada, approximately 700,000 Albertans have signed a petition requesting a vote on this issue. And I, as Premier, will not have a legal mistake by a single judge silence the voices of hundreds of thousands of Albertans. That's not the Alberta way. Alberta's future will be decided by Albertans, not the courts. Our government will therefore be appealing the decision to Alberta's Court of Appeal and, if necessary, the Supreme Court of Canada. But this process will take many months and possibly years before being addressed by those higher courts. In the meantime, under our legal system, this troubling court decision is binding law in Alberta until it is successfully appealed. This means that it is unlikely the courts will permit Elections Alberta to hold a binding provincial referendum on separation until this incorrect ruling is overturned or clarified. But there is another way to hear from Albertans while we wait for our legal appeal to be heard. That is why I'm announcing today that I will be requesting our government add an additional question to the October 19th referendum vote announced previously. The additional question will be, should Alberta remain a province of Canada? Or should the government of Alberta commence the legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada? Because this proposed referendum question does not directly trigger separation, but if successful, would ask Alberta's government to commence the legal process necessary to hold a binding referendum on the matter, the recent court ruling would not be applicable, and the referendum question I outlined could proceed. This question will also ensure the 700,000 signatories to both the Forever Canada petition and the Stay Free Alberta petition are respected, and the will of Albertans is heard. Kicking the can down the road only prolongs a very emotional and important debate, and muzzling the voices of hundreds of thousands of Albertans wanting to be heard is unjustifiable in a free and democratic society. It's time to have a vote, understand the will of Albertans on this subject, and move on. Now, obviously, Alberta's first ever provincial vote on our province's future in Canada is of monumental importance. As such, I feel it is important to clearly state my personal position so Albertans know where I stand. I first want to assure Albertans that our government will respect the outcome and direction received on all of the referendum questions being voted on this October 19th. Our government has already launched the website, albertareferendum2026.ca, with a significant amount of background information on the immigration and constitutional questions previously announced, and I hope every Albertan will take the time to explore that website in detail. As to the specific issue of separation, I have repeatedly stated that the position of the UCP caucus and UCP government is to build a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. I have never deviated from that position, and I will not do so now. I will therefore be voting for Alberta to remain in Canada, while continuing to work each and every day to restore and strengthen provincial rights under the Canadian Constitution. The fact is, Canada was founded on this very principle. Canada is very different from the United States and many other Western democracies. For example, the United States centralizes the majority of power and decision-making in its federal government. In Canada, We chose a decentralized federation composed of very unique and diverse provinces left to govern themselves in almost all matters, with the main exceptions of national defense and international affairs. Over time, our federal government has sought to move towards a more centralized American-style system, with Ottawa attempting to take over many provincial areas of jurisdiction, using all manner of legislative, judicial, and financial leverage. I categorically reject Ottawa's attempts to do so and call on all provincial leaders and MPs to undo the extensive damage that centralization of power in Ottawa has done to our country economically and with respect to national unity. I am fiercely loyal to both Alberta and Canada, but I truly believe our country is so much stronger and more prosperous when we respect the rights of provinces and empower them to govern themselves with minimal federal interference. Albertans, not Ottawa. Quebecers, not Ottawa. And all the other provinces must each be empowered to control our own direction and destiny, whether it's energy policy, agricultural practices, policing, firearms ownership, or how to administer our social programs. The days of Ottawa dictating and interfering in provincial affairs must come to an end. The future economic success and unity of our country depends on it. When I was first elected Premier, I was very concerned that it would be almost impossible to restore provincial rights stolen from Alberta and other provinces by the Trudeau-Singh government in Ottawa. However, our government went to work to see if we could. We have been relentless in making our voices heard, launching dozens of legal actions, appearing in hundreds of national interviews, bridge building with other premiers, and aggressively passing legislation, such as the Alberta Sovereignty within a United Canada Act, to take back our provincial autonomy from the federal government. We ran extensive advertising campaigns against the destructive net zero electricity regulations, as well as the catastrophic oil and gas production cap, in order to persuade our fellow Canadians that Trudeau's anti-Alberta agenda was also anti-Canadian and was destroying the unity, energy, and economic future of our nation. A great majority of Albertans joined us in that fight, calling friends, relatives, and participating in social media to spread that message throughout the country. We made a lot of noise as a province. We fought hard and refused to accept the status quo. And the result? Well, my friends, we have started to win. Over the course of the last 2 years, the tide of national public opinion on resource development, provincial rights, energy policy, and a host of other issues began to turn. Our Alberta oil sands went from a national target to a national treasure. Pipelines went from impossible to a national imperative. Justin Trudeau's anti-Alberta, anti-energy policies became a national embarrassment, one of several, that ultimately cost him his prime ministership. The Leave It in the Ground NDP, led by Jagmeet Singh, was electorally annihilated. And the federal Liberals, led by their new leader, Prime Minister Mark Carney, adopted most of Alberta's positions on energy and resource development. In fact, the current Prime Minister has worked very constructively with our government to craft an Alberta-Ottawa Energy Agreement, or MOU, as it is often called. This has already attracted tens of billions of dollars in investment for new pipelines, natural gas-run data centers, electricity generation, and so much more. Under that energy agreement with Ottawa, the destructive federal electricity regulations are gone. The economically disastrous oil and gas production cap has been scrapped. New pipelines carrying nearly 1 million barrels of Alberta oil to the United States are proceeding with speed toward construction. And a new 1 million barrel a day pipeline to the BC West Coast is well in progress and on track to have its permitting completed by September of next year. Could and should these reforms and projects move faster? Yes, of course they should. The federal government can and needs to act with even more urgency than it has. Do we in Alberta still have our differences with the federal Liberal government? Obviously. And make no mistake, we will relentlessly challenge them to respect our provincial rights and jurisdiction every time they step over the line. But my fellow Albertans, there can be no doubt that things are a world of difference better for our province than they were under the Trudeau NDP government. Both major federal parties, the federal Conservatives and now the federal Liberals, representing 85% of voters in Canada, are advocating for Alberta to increase our energy production and exports. Only some extremists in the NDP, Bloc Québécois, and Green parties, representing less than 15% of voters in Canada, hold fast to their anti-Alberta, leave-it-in-the-ground rhetoric. This complete turning of Canadian government policy and national public opinion was unthinkable just a few short years ago. No one thought it was possible, except here, in Alberta. We turned the tide. We are winning hearts and minds to our cause right across the country, as many of our fellow Canadians are coming to understand that a strong Alberta and strong provinces means a stronger and more prosperous Canada. Now, to those hundreds of thousands of Albertans who are still not convinced or are unsatisfied with the pace of change and believe that separation is the answer, I want you to know that I empathize with you and I understand why you feel that way. You are justifiably frustrated and angry with Ottawa. You are proud and loyal Albertans that have watched their province be taken advantage of repeatedly over past decades, and you want it to stop. So do I, more than anything. Like you, I love this province and our people so much. I am so proud to be Albertan. But I ask you to please consider joining me to vote for Alberta to remain in Canada and not give up on our beautiful country just as we're gaining respect and the tide has turned in our favor. Not when our fellow Canadians, even those that may support different political parties, are nonetheless supporting Alberta's vision for a prosperous, energy-rich nation with strong provinces building a Canada we can be proud of again. In my view, now is not the time to give up hope in our country, not when we have fought so hard for so long and come so far. I believe Canada can still work. I believe it's working better every day, and it can work even better in the future if we keep fighting together for it. Together with our fellow Canadians, we have built a Canada that is loved and respected all over the world. Our men and women have died together, fighting for our freedoms and the safety of hundreds of millions around the globe. Canadians were there in Europe, fighting and making the ultimate sacrifice in the Second World War long before we were joined in that effort by our American allies. Together with our allies, we were also instrumental in beating back the forces of communism and terrorism. The world would be a much darker place if not for Canada. We have built marvels of technology together. We are known the world over as a country of innovators, explorers, and entrepreneurs, but also of peacemakers, philanthropists, and contributors to the good of the world. Our federal politicians may stray from our foundational values from time to time, but our fellow Canadians, they are our family, our friends, our blood. We all know our family needs to do some work to get rid of a few bad habits developed over the past decade, but that's what we are in the process of fixing. Now is the time to double down and fight even harder for the prosperity and change we want to see in our country. Because Albertans are at our best when we are hard at work getting things done for each other and our families, solving problems, serving our communities, creating and innovating, building a stronger Alberta and a stronger Canada. And now is our chance to do so, finally with a Chinook wind at our backs instead of a winter blizzard in our face. Finally, I wish to speak with those of you who already agree with me that Alberta should remain in Canada. Let us guard against the trap of using division and demonization tactics against our fellow Albertans with whom we disagree on this matter. The vast majority of those advocating for separation love our province profoundly. Many are also proud Canadians that have simply lost hope that their families can flourish within Canada. So instead of attacking these loyal Albertans, let's work together to restore hope in their country again. Let's work together to hold Ottawa accountable for implementing the Alberta-Ottawa energy deal and get that pipeline built to the West Coast. Let's work together to get Ottawa to stand down on their unfair persecution of law-abiding gun owners. Let's work together to build an immigration system that helps support our economy while putting Alberta workers and taxpayers first. Let's demonstrate why Alberta can be stronger and more prosperous as a member of a renewed and unified Canada, one that is moving past the last 10 years to empower provinces to develop and export our resources and to govern our own provincial affairs free from federal interference. Let's use the power of hope and persuasion and reject the language of division and demonization. We are, after all, each other's neighbors, friends, and family. We must never let the voices of hatred and vilification divide us as a people. Because at the end of this debate, and when the referendum is over, we must come together to ensure that our beloved province continues to prosper. And that is my hope, that our beloved Alberta and Canada will remain forever strong and free. Thank you and good night.
We call we call it post-production when you make a video in advance and then you shoot it on the internet. It's like, I'm just evaluating things here. This probably took 2 weeks to do it. So my understanding, that's my personal opinion, I think that this video was done way before everything happened. But that's my understanding. Could be.
Okay. Good evening. Okay. Welcome to a Let's Talk Alberta event where we welcome all sides to come and discuss the future of Alberta. Just to say that after what we've heard tonight, Chris will be responding later when it's his time to give his presentation. So very important night tonight. We're so happy that you did take the time to come out, and I hope that you will learn something, and then when you leave here, you'll feel that your time was well spent and you take away something valuable, and that when you have to make a decision in October, you will have an informed decision. Few housekeeping items. There are emergency exits to my left. Okay, sorry. There's emergency exits to the left, out the back here, and one behind the screen here. Washrooms are in the back. If you haven't yet had refreshments, please feel free to come up and get some. We have a sign-up sheet in the back. And if you are interested in knowing more or you feel like you would like to volunteer, please go put your name on one of the two boards that are at the back and just let us know where you live and give us some contact info. We also have merchandise tables, as you see when you're coming in, and it has Alberta-themed items. We also encourage you to visit the Let's Talk Alberta website. Learn how you can support the movement. Every voice, every action, every Albertan makes a big difference and is vital to this mission. May 26th, there is a very large event happening in Lacombe, and it's at the Lacombe Memorial Center. There's going to be a chicken and ribs dinner, and there are tickets available online. I think only online for the tickets? Probably, okay. Go online. The doors open at 5:30. There will be speakers and there will be musicians, so it's going to be more of a celebratory night, maybe a little bit different than what we're seeing here. How this is going to go tonight, we have 4 very powerful speakers who will share information with you tonight, share their personal insights on what the issues are surrounding Alberta and the question before us. We kindly ask that during the presentations that you would hold your comments and questions. You would hold your comments and questions till the end, because we will have a question and answer time set aside. I do have something a little different and a little special tonight. We're in Round Hill, and I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you and acknowledge someone who actually lives in Round Hill. I know there's only a population of 125, so I'm assuming most of you are from somewhere else. But during the signature collection phase of the work, the Citizens Initiative petition that was going on, I had the privilege of being the regional leader for the APP, and I've met some wonderful people, and a lot of them are here tonight, so you know how I feel about you, but just to acknowledge you publicly. But there's one unique person that was part of our team, and that is Mr. Murray Graham. What's unique about Murray is he has the right to claim that he is the oldest canvasser that we had, and he is a young 92 years old. Murray, could you stand? He was out with the teams, whether the weather was good, whether it was horrible, whether it was cold. He attended venues, he knocked on doors, got signatures from neighbors, and I just want to say how proud I am that I got to meet you, that you were part of this team. So, thank you, Murray. Okay, last thing. How many of you are here for the very first time at an event like this? Oh, well, we doubly welcome you. We usually open with prayer, and so I'm going to ask Mr. Ben Crane to come up and open in prayer, but I'd also like to introduce you to Ben Crane. He's someone, too, that I've had the privilege of meeting during these events. And Ben Crane is not only a good speaker, a good musician, a good writer, and a good comedian, but he's a very decent and good man. And I am so happy to introduce you tonight, Mr. Ben Crane.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much. Let's pray. Father, we got weird emotions going on inside us. We're frustrated. There's some good things. There's some things we don't understand. But Lord, I ask in you that you would give us peace in our hearts right now and give us the ability to have clear minds, to think things through and to make up our own minds and to honor each other in spite of differences. Thank you for the country that we do have, the freedom that we do have. Man, we know that comes from you, and we sure appreciate that, and so we thank you for that. Thank you for this evening, for everybody who's out, and I pray your blessing on this whole evening. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Well, I do want to thank you guys for showing up. This is fantastic. We've been having so much fun running around the country and doing this. Typically, I've been speaking on faith and family and freedom and the values that are core values, but I found me another one, and I had kind of a basic building block, another one that kind of hit me just this week. So this is brand new, so I'm reading my notes. I think I've passed the reading test now, but another basic building block of life has been tickling both the brain cells. I got one on this side, one on this side, and every once in a while they synapse and they zap, and there's a big bang and a lot of smoke, and I have a thought. And this thought was about identity, because I really think what I'm trying to do is look to the very foundational things, because when things start doing this. If you're in a sea and it's starting to throw you all over the place, you got to grab for something that's solid. And that's usually something like a rock. And identity, I believe, is a rock. We're all designed right from the start to identify with something much bigger than us. We join clubs of varying interests. We vote for the Flames. Okay, that went over like a hand sandwich in a synagogue. We just naturally look for something to be a part of. It's a tribe. It's an identity. When I was born, way back in the 1900s, you remember that? I was given a name of my own. And I was also given a family name. I belonged to the Crane clan. And I was given an identity. And then we moved to Alberta when I was 2. And we joined a nation that was much larger than our family. We became Canadian. It was a new identity. Back in those days, it was a country that was revered and respected, just like Danielle was talking about. Basic Second War. We were just huge in that whole thing. We visited Dominica, a little Caribbean island, a few years back. And when they found out that we was Canadian, they said, "Oh, we love Canada." They said, "You folks built us schools and hospitals when we were devastated by a hurricane a few decades back, and they just gave us a royal treatment." We had an identity. But about half a century back, the leaders of Canada decided to start changing that. They decided that we are now a multicultural country. And that sounds really good at the first. But what it really means is we don't have an identity. We are instead a conglomeration of a whole bunch of other identities. So when you immigrate here, you do not become Canadian. You instead retain all your cultural heritage from the place you just came from, both good and bad. So we have pockets of this, we have pockets of this, but nothing Canadian. Fast forward to the last couple decades, and we see mass immigration forced upon the provinces from Ottawa with the intention, according to documents obtained by Juno News and others, to salt conservative voting areas with liberal voters. Give the people everything they got, and they'll happily vote for you. We'll erase our old identity. And this is where I differ from what our premier just said. I don't believe this is something that has happened just in the last 10 years. I've seen this happen right since 1905. Ottawa has also aligned itself with global governance and our PM's famous New World Order, which, and I love that, I laugh. Human strife. And everybody suddenly, all you have to do is get rid of these pesky borders. You get rid of the strife, and everybody suddenly gets along beautifully. Utopia? I suggest the opposite. Being human is the problem with human strife. And borders protect us from one group of people invading and obliterating a neighboring people who hold differing opinions. Borders help protect our identity, and they help us respect those who have a different identity. That fence is there. They can do what they want over here. We want to do what we want here. Ottawa has also signaled its intention to sever ties with the U.S., our largest trading partner and closest ally, with whom we share the longest unsecured border in the world, in favor of a cozy relationship and alignment with Communist China. These are not values that we hold. We never have. It has openly adopted woke ideologies and the climate catastrophe craziness. In short, Ottawa has completely canceled its historic identity. Eastern Canadian voters have consistently agreed with this direction by continuing to vote for Liberals, while us Western voters have absolutely no say west of the Ontario border. They have intentionally changed our identity, and they've made it very clear that this is the direction they are hurtling towards, full steam, full intention. This is where it gets really weird to me. The opposition to Alberta independence by conservative voters out here, it just has me baffled. Now, they've got their opinion, and I'm okay with that. Because if I try to force them to my opinion, I'm being just as bad as what I hate them trying to do to me. So we got to rise above this, and I do appreciate what she said about that. She's absolutely right. But it appears to me that we both want the same thing. We want to be proud of our country. We want to honor the vets who have fought and died for the values and our identity that we have. We want to have a safe place to live and raise our children the way we want to raise them. We don't want the state to raise them. We want freedom to be ourselves and to thrive, to work without being controlled and censored. We want to be free to hold and to voice our opinions and practice our own faith. We want to vote that actually counts. We want fiscally responsible small government with that pesky little thing they call moral integrity. I really believe that we share so many common goals, even though we disagree on how to achieve them. We have to realize that unity is not sameness. That identity, or that, what's that big word? Definition, there you go, has been changed. Unity is making the intentional decision to work together towards the same goal in spite of and even embracing our differences. So my question to you, neighbor, is what kind of a country do you want? Do you really want the direction that Ottawa has been taking us for a good half a century? That is where I also disagree with her statement tonight. This is not something we can change. Ottawa has been taking us this way for at least a half a century, and we know we've been doing that right from the start as well, if you look into history. Or do you want to retain the culture and core values and beliefs and identity that Alberta was founded upon more than a... That's what I'm fighting for my family, for my kids, my grandkids, and you. For the very first time in the history of our province, all the way back to 1905, we will have a say in how a new country of Alberta will run, free from the control of a hostile federal government. The referendum will afford us the privilege of having the direct say in how we want to be governed. I love it. There's hope. We tend to not have a whole lot of hope right now. I've seen that, the balloon just kind of deflating. And if I can somehow encourage you folks to grab a hold of that hope, we ain't dead yet. Okay? I'm thinking of the pioneers who came across. They left a place that was comfortable to them, but they didn't agree with it. They left a place that had the comforts, and they got in them. They must have been Fords. They didn't have a whole lot of suspension. They came across, they had no idea what they were facing. And they faced all kinds of garbage on the way here. But they came here, not knowing what was around the corner. That's us. You and I are the new pioneers. Don't let a lack of understanding of what's around the corner stop you from going. That's my encouragement to you. We need a new border to protect our identity and to also respect the other culture without feeling that it's being forced upon us. That is to respect Eastern Canada's culture and people different from us, but without Western Canadian forcing, Western Canada being forced to conform. Let's build a country that honors faith and family and freedom. And the only way to accomplish that, I honestly think, is to separate. And that way we can become actually respectful business partners and friends with them, still maintain who we are. It doesn't mean we're enemies. We actually can go the direction that we feel in our heart that we need to go. They changed identity, folks. We haven't. I like this quote: "The only way to predict your future is to write it." So let's pick up a pen and take back our identity. Well, thank you so much. And there's a bunch of other speakers here tonight, people that I've become friends with and have really come to respect. And everybody's got a different opinion and a different way of looking at things, and that's what I think is the beauty of a community. Shane told me when he invited me to join this tour as a speaker, because I'm really not a speaker. I stutter a lot, and as long as I got something here, I can do it. But boy, it's a whole lot different than talking. Cory can tell you that. But he asked me, Shane asked me if I would write a song, and so I did. And then I don't know what happened, but creative juices got going, and I wrote a second song. So he asked me to sing both of them to you. The first one is called "My Alberta Roots Run Deep," and this was all I could think of the night that I went home after he said, "Write yourself a song, you lazy bum. My Alberta roots run deep." The only life I know goes back 100 years, steeped in deep traditions, blood and sweat and tears. The value of hard work, common sense and hope and truth, that family and freedom, and the value of our youth. What makes me wanna hold on, what I know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand my ground and fight. My Alberta roots run deep. It's in my blood, in my bones, it gets stronger every day. When somebody tries to move in, tear it all away, I just draw a line there in the sand, stand my ground and say, my Alberta roots run deep. Well, it's living on the land, watching life come and go, working hard and playing hard, in sunshine and in snow. We don't really ask for much, 'cause we know that God provides and has given us all the things we need to enjoy this life and thrive. What makes us want to hold on to what we know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand the ground and fight. Our Alberta roots run deep, in our blood, In our bones, they get stronger every day. And when somebody tries to move in, bear it all away. Draw a line there in the sand, stand the ground and say, our Alberta roots, we don't hide us, they decide us, make us who we are today. And when life's this good, you just don't throw it away. 'Cause our Alberta roots run deep. You can't dig them up, pull them out. They get stronger every day. And when somebody tries to move in, tear it all away. I just draw a line there in the sand, stand my ground and say, our Alberta roots run deep, run deep. Man, I appreciate that. Then we got one more that I'm hanging with these guys. I've learned so much. I did not know about the history of our country, and I'm so glad I learned, because I did not know that we didn't even ask. We was conscripted 1905. So this one is called Big Dreams. The dance floor is open. No, we didn't ask. Had different ideas. We was too good a deal to pass up. They saw what we had and they wanted it bad, so they signed us up there on the spot. They said, we'll call you Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. You do the work, we'll take the pay. That makes us the ultimate team. Well, we realized that we was a peasant. This arrangement just couldn't go far. They said, you feed the cow, we may allow you to take a small sip from the jar. Things just got worse as the time flew. The feds kept stomping our necks. They take all our pay, keep our assets at bay. The whole thing's become a big wreck. So long to old Alberta, ain't much that's left of our dreams. We're told what to think, election day stinks, giving off all of our means. Well, we've had it, we're rattled, we're just gonna move on and change back what's ours from the start. Ride a new horse and we start a new course. Thank God that we're finally free. Raise a glass to old Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. We're finally free to be who we should be and rid of the liberal schemes. So let's break rigid chains, breathe free again. Thank God that we're finally free. Oh, so much foolishness. but it's good. Are you got something to say?
I do, but I'm also going to put this on there because they're having trouble on
Ah, there we go. Technology. This is our fine, fearless leader.
the one that he was lying about earlier. Could I also get everybody to just check their phone and see if it has the Alberta crest on the back? Because somehow I think somebody picked up my phone. So if you could just check your phone, that would be appreciated because I can't seem to see it.
All right. Well, the next speaker that we've got for you tonight, we're just really happy to have her along. She's the one that makes the rest of us look a whole lot better. Miss Kathy Flett she's from down in, is it the High River area? Somewhere down in that neck of the woods. And she is also an influencer online. You can see her regularly. And she's just got a great love for this country we call Alberta. Ladies and gentlemen, Kathy Flett.
Thank you. It's like Max knows me. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow 2 songs in a row like that. Wasn't that awesome? Man, give Ben another hand. So good, so good. And there's a bit of a running joke among some of us ladies that are quickly becoming his groupies. We're like, we're knowing the words to this first song that he said we should just be his backup singers. We're sitting there singing it anyway. One of the greatest benefits of going through this petition process on our way to a referendum is experiencing in real time just how messed up the Canadian system of government really is. The irony of the statements that our federal politicians tend to make is legendary. For example, Carney's address just a few months ago at Davos. He said, "If we're not at the table, we're on the menu." And then he went on to say, "This is not sovereignty. It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination." Now, he was talking about Canada's place in the world, but that actually describes Alberta's place within a united Canada. We do not have any semblance of a real seat at the table in Ottawa, and we never have. And we are indeed treated as subordinates. Canada is part of the Commonwealth, which should have every Alberta asking, Commonwealth for whom? It sounds like a fair for all type of idea, but it isn't. Because you see, Canada has a ruling class called the Laurentian elite. They actually run the country through politicians and the political system. I would also argue their wealth comes from us commoners, Commonwealth. Just a thought. These Laurentians are real fans of the age-old divide and conquer strategies to stay in power and keep their fiefdom together. Decades ago, when the independence movement first began to kind of take shape, a lot of effort went into pulling it down from within. And for decades, that worked like a charm. Now it doesn't. So they tried pitting East against West, a little harder this time. And while it did ruffle some feathers around here, including mine a little bit, for the most part, it was water off a duck's back and actually fed our frustrations with Ottawa. Next, they decided, well, let's pit Albertans against Albertans, particularly one generation against another. Well, that only served to unite us all the more, and support for independence kept growing in all age categories. Then they decided to take it up a notch. Now, just to backtrack a bit to paint the picture, believe it or not, it was Kenny who gave us the bill that gave us the ability to have a citizen-initiated referendum. He did that. Now, what isn't hard to believe is he made it pretty much impossible to do anything with it. It was smoke and mirrors. So the current Alberta government recognized that and passed some bills to make some much-needed changes, after which they realized, it's not quite perfect yet. They made a few more amendments. Now, let's review the process of how a bill becomes a law, because it's been a while since most of us have been in school. First, it has to pass 3 readings in the legislature, which means our elected officials have 3 opportunities to decide if that bill needs any changes before going on to receive royal assent. Royal assent is when the appointed Lieutenant Governor of Alberta looks over it, sees nothing wrong, gives it her or his stamp of approval, and that makes it law. In other words, our elected officials, under the leadership of our premier that we just listened to, went through all the proper constitutional procedures to give the people a law that gave us a voice, the one that we were asking for. The checks and balances that are part of the Westminster system did not identify anything needing checking or balancing along the way. And as per the Constitution, the citizen-initiated petition to have a referendum became law with all the amendments. In typical Alberta fashion, once we were given the go-ahead, we got to work using that law for our benefit to hold a lawful citizen-initiated petition to have a referendum on Alberta's independence. We did it lawfully, through the proper channels. Well, when the Laurentians that I described earlier realized we are not a fringe minority, they freaked out because they knew we were going to get the signatures. And a few First Nations chiefs were willing to do their bidding, the Laurentians' bidding, and take the separatists to court to stop it. A federally appointed judge in the Court of King's Bench said even though our elected officials followed the Constitution to a T, she didn't agree with it. And she squashed it. She was able to do so because the Westminster system of government allows for that. Now I'm going to summarize for you one more time what happened. I want you to understand this. Our elected officials passed a law that we, the people, asked for to give us a voice. An unelected, federally appointed judge didn't like it and quashed it. Now, the judge didn't say we couldn't have that referendum. It just can't be initiated by us plebs. That's what she said, or at least that's my interpretation. This should have never been the case. And it's so egregious that both our premier and her government and Mitch are appealing it, and that is the right thing to do. Now, there's another recent example of when the law was used against the people. Just a few years ago, several laws were passed, both in the House of Commons and in our provincial legislature via the same process I just described. Those laws mandated a pause on our freedom to assemble, freedom of mobility, ability to earn a living, go to school, go to church. Couldn't even take our kids to the park. Only certain people were to receive medical treatment, while others were refused. There was to be no freedom of thought, opinion, or belief on the matter. You remember? And they decided who was essential and who wasn't. The checks and balances that should have and could have stopped that from happening in our country, let alone in our province, were taken away by the federal government under the guise of an emergency. And there wasn't much the people could do. Hence the trucker convoy. And what followed that was an obnoxious amount of lawfare that continues to this day. Welcome to Canada, where the Westminster system of government is not broken. It is working perfectly, too perfectly. And for months, I have said, leave the politicians out of this process just for now. And there's a reason for that. We know what they're capable of, and they're likely to run the movement into the ground. I firmly believe this movement has gotten where it has because we did that. We left the politicians out of it. We took this on. But I'm afraid this Court of King's Bench ruling changes things. We're seeing their playbook. What happened in that courtroom is but a taste of what's to come, which means we need to revise our strategy. Now is the time to be more politically engaged than ever before. The Westminster system of government can and likely will be used against us. That's just the Canadian way, which means it's time to learn the system, to use the system, to disrupt the system, to get out of the system. With a two-pronged approach to what's coming our way, we will be able to apply pressure on both fronts. We need activism directed directly at the political structure and taking place from within the structure. Two things. So here's what that looks like. We will always need people putting pressure on politicians. The more groups we have, the better. Spreading that message, supporting that message. Don't worry about who's doing it. Don't worry about one replacing the other. There's a lot to do, so just keep everybody busy. That's the first prong. All of us keep talking, keep sharing that message, keep sharing everything you can online, no matter who it's coming from. If you agree with it, share it. That's how we apply pressure directly towards the political structure. The way we do it within is through CAs. They hold a lot of power. That's how we got rid of Kenny. Now, if you don't know what a CA is, I need you to Google it. Get on the UCP website and Elections Alberta website. Learn about it. Then go get your UCP membership if you don't have one yet, and begin attending these meetings. Go as a group, particularly to the CA AGMs. Identify those who want independence and they're willing to work for it. Vote them onto those boards. If you are one of those board members, when things get uncomfortable, and they will, stay put. Boldly hold your ground. What our Premier said tonight is not against us, guys. Don't take it as that. She's using the system as best she can to help us. That's what I heard. I don't agree with her stance any more than she agrees with mine. But she's trying to help us navigate the system. Let's help her do that. And as we continue forward toward a referendum on independence this fall, not the one we wanted, but at least we're getting a question for now, there's going to be even more obstacles, just like this one, on our path. And there's going to be challenges along the journey. Expect it. This is the first of many. So let's continue to remind ourselves and each other that true Albertans are not pushovers. Ladies and gentlemen, we do indeed have our work cut out for us. And together we will get this done. Onward and upward to that referendum. Thank you. Our next speaker that we have tonight comes all the way from southern Alberta to visit us. You probably have seen him on several social media pages, including on his show on the Western Standard. You've probably read some of the things that he shared in the Western Standard and in the Epoch Times. One of the things that I really appreciate about Cory is when we have days like today where there's a lot to think about and a lot to ponder, is I just find his X feed and his quick wit quickly gets me laughing when he's making fun of people. And because I don't have quick wit, I'm just boring. But I have learned so much from him, and he really is an icon and a pillar in this movement. He's been around it longer than most of us and has so much to teach us. So please welcome Cory Morgan to the stage.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. I don't tend to use notes, but this is one part I got to read verbatim because I just heard it tonight along with the rest of you. Should Alberta remain a province of Canada, or should the government of Alberta commence the legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada? That's verbal vomit. I understand, actually, why we can't get the question we wanted right now. I understand why we had to take another path here. And I'll go into that. You know, the corner that the Premier's in, I'm supportive of this. I just don't like this question. I don't know how I'm supposed to vote on that. We need a yes or no. This is the reason the Clarity Act was written, because a past referendum was held with a 200-word question as well. So let's talk about the process of what we got going on right now. Some people are saying Premier Smith, though, should have just put the binding constitutional referendum question on a ballot for the 20th. And as Kathy is pointing out, unfortunately, we got a system that's not working with us right now. You put that question on there, the chiefs will be in court, and there'll be an injunction against it within a week. That's just the reality. They've applied the bloody consultation crap to this, and now we can't get out of it until we get through an appeal. People are saying, well, Quebec didn't have to do that. No, they didn't, but a lot has changed since 1995 in the empowerment and all of these bloody liberal activist judges reinterpreting Section 35 of the Constitution, which gives an obligation to consult when we do things constitutionally or big items, but they've read in consent, which is BS. But unfortunately, it's really built a quagmire. That's a large part of the reason we can't get anything done. We can't get anything to the coast. We can't get anything built because we got to consult. You know what consult, when it turns into consent, turns into? It turns into extortion. Because you'll never get it until you pay off enough people. And we've got to push back against that. But right now, the Premier is cornered. If she put that question on there, it's going to go to court. It's already being appealed anyways on the basis of the petitioning, but that's going to take a year. They won't move fast on this. So that's where she's giving something to work on, something to keep moving on, something to keep progressing for. The other option is to have no question at all, have nothing coming up in the referendum. Now, this word salad here, I hope, can be changed, because the next step in this, actually, it still has to go to cabinet. So it's come from committee, where the staffer brilliantly leaked it out with a preemptive press release. Nothing prematurely released ends well. And now they've done it again through committee today, and they managed to hold back long enough to get the job done. Good for them. But so the process goes from committee. The committee gives a recommendation to the Premier read what they've come up with that question, and then it goes to cabinet. So there's still room for the cabinet to say, ugh, this isn't working. I understand you can't put, should Alberta secede and become an independent country, as we'd like to have seen. They can't do it. It'll immediately trigger a court challenge, and they'll put another injunction on it. But they got to change something from that, because I'm not even sure how to vote. Do you agree Alberta should stay within Canada? No, I don't. But or do you agree with this? Well, I said yes. Does that mean I said yes to the second part of the first? We're going to have some questions. But there's still time to adapt that. Now, some people are feeling maybe betrayed. Fair enough. They put in so much work, as Mr. Graham there on the upper middle age, putting in all that time petitioning. The petitioning was not wasted. It was not wasted for a second. Nobody wasted a minute with that petitioning. That was one of the greatest engagements we've seen in the history of the province. We saw volunteers getting up, networking, getting together, sharing information, promoting independence on the highways, in the winter weather, in the community halls, in the night, with their neighbors, with their friends. That expanded and solidified the base for the independence movement. Even if those petitions never get unsealed from wherever they're stored back in the Elections Alberta warehouse, nobody wasted a thing in signing those or in getting them all done. In fact, if that had not been done, the easiest out for the Premier would just say, we're just not doing it. She understands there's hundreds of thousands of Albertans want to go on with this question. So what do? We keep working. We're Albertans. The house burns down, you don't throw your hands up and freeze, you start rebuilding. And we're not at a burnt down house, we're at another hurdle. And to be honest, there's some blessings we can get out of this. We've done a lot of these meetings, a lot, with Chris and others, and they've been fantastic, and we're going to do a lot more. One of the things I have been worried about, one of the scenarios, let's say we got the question, we got it forward, it came through, but we hadn't moved the needle and 30% of people voted yes this October. We are done for, 4 or 5 years, at least? Did we have enough momentum to win it by this October? I don't know. Looking at numbers right now, maybe not. We've really solidified a base of support. We've built a brilliant, beautiful organization on the ground, but numbers aren't showing that we moved that middle 30% that we need to yet. So we might have been able to in the campaign by October, but this gives us more time to work on them because we must win them. And we will get that referendum. This is a hurdle, not a wall. and we'll get over it. And the thing that's so important is that we keep working, we keep moving, we keep acting, even if it feels like a pointless referendum coming this fall. Well, we want to win that with whatever side we have to determine out of that question. Again, I hope it's improved. As strongly as possible. It'll be like the petitioning. It'll still be gathering, networking, convincing people, campaigning, learning. And whenever that question comes for real, and it's going to, nobody's given up here, we're going to be that much more strong and ready to do it. One of the issues, I was speaking to some people before, a little bit of trying to polish that turd of a question, in that this extra time allows us to fill one gap that I think was really hurting us a lot, that I found at a lot of meetings during the Q&As. And the question we would get hit with all the time is the pension. And it's really, when we look at the polling, Rebel News did a great poll, used Main Street polling, and saw some 3,000 people they polled in Alberta. There were two very interesting things. 46% of Indigenous people supported independence. They didn't expect that. But we're still soft in the seniors. And the number one issue there is pensions. We've really got to patch that hole. I think we should really be pushing on that Alberta pension plan. Get that question right out of the way, then it's done. We have it here, we have our funds, we have our background. That's something else we can keep working on in the meantime. But we're gonna have something this fall. I think that question can be improved. I'm already kind of writing the columns in my head. I've already gotten a few emails. I'm gonna be writing a lot tomorrow. And one of the things I'm going to be demanding is, Premier Smith, please go to the cabinet and fix that up. I understand you can't give us the constitutional question, but you got to give us something better than that beef stew. I don't even know what it means exactly. And I think she might. I mean, they've been acting in a scramble. They didn't expect the ruling to come. They were hoping for that degree of separation. They would much rather this came from petitioners and they could keep their arm's length. As you saw, she said, and she will keep saying that she's a federalist right to the end. That's fine, because she has as many votes in the referendum as you do. So let her campaign how we will, as long as she lets us campaign how we will. So we've got to keep campaigning. We've got to keep learning. We've got to keep getting better. This just pushed it a little farther. I know. I wanted to be independent 20 years ago when I started the Alberta Independence Party. 26 years ago. I've had to learn patience here. We can hang on a little longer. I know Mr. Graham's got at least 30 more years to work on this. We don't give up. We've made incredible strides. We're making history in Alberta. We've never seen a year like this before. We really haven't. We're going to get a referendum. No, it's not going to happen the way we'd really originally hoped, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen at all. Because the system is broken, and that hasn't changed. That won't change. One of the things I like when Danielle Smith does MOUs and all that sort of stuff and everything is every time she walks up and tries to get something from the feds and they slap her in the face and she runs into a wall, support for a yes vote goes up 3%. There's a lot of people in that undecided that say the same thing. Well, we haven't tried everything yet. We haven't tried this. We haven't tried this. We haven't tried this. Well, she's trying it all. And they're running out of questions. And it moves them to the yes. So let her carry on. Because another fear and another thing that's happening, I know some people are pretty impatient. They're upset or they might have other agendas. But there's people saying, we've got to take the premier out of power. We've got to organize. We've got to get in there. We've got to remove her. There's a lot of, fair enough, and you don't have to like the premier or support, but we've only got so much energy and so much time and things to expend this year. And if people are going to spend the next 4 months doing everything they can to take a premier out, that's a whole lot of campaigning and time that could have been working towards a yes vote that I'd much rather see. So prioritize your energy, prioritize your goals, even if you're frustrated with her, even if you're impatient, because the yes vote's all that matters. We got to make our voice heard. The reason they did say that in that convoluted question, though, I had talked to some people there before all this, though I didn't know the exact extent to the question. I know the rationale. They had been talking to some lawyers in that it they have to take. And so we can say we did our due diligence, we did our consultation, It's finished. Now we're moving on to the question. Easier said than done. But that's why they're talking about giving permission for the government to move on to the legal mechanisms to fully actually become independent. We just got to get that, I think, though, into a better yes or no question. Like the rest of you, I've only had an hour to digest what she said there, so these are the thoughts I've got at this point. I'm sure I'll have a lot more in my columns tomorrow on the Western Standard, Epoch Times, Rebel News. Be sure to subscribe to all of those and tell them Cory sent you. And I'll leave it at that. I'm looking forward to the Q&A because we got a lot of folks up here and I'm sure a lot of questions. And I see Ben Trudeau has managed to come in. He's going to bring a great perspective because he's an Albertan, but he's come from the dark side. And they've learned a lot over there, and they can share that, and Ben's going to share it with us, and it's always great words of wisdom. So thank you very much, guys, and I'll talk to you a little later.
I do still bear the scars of the name. So, yeah, my name is Ben Trudeau. I've been here for 20 years in Alberta. I was born and raised in Montreal in a very political family, which is not linked directly to the infamous one. My dad was a speechwriter, PR guy. I've been raised in deep Quebec politics from very young. Went through my first referendum.
That's not the part of the speech. I just wanted to show the question and my computer just glitched.
Okay. So that's my background. I came here and moved here in 2008. I was working for the first Harper government as an advisor to Minister Jean-Pierre Blackburn of Canada Economic Development. And he sent me on a mission here, and I decided to move in Alberta. I met my wife here, she was born and raised in Edmonton. We have 4 kids. Everybody born at the Grey Nuns Hospital in Edmonton. And I now live in Sylvan Lake for the past 2 years. What I want to talk to you tonight and address, it's maybe considering what fell on us an hour ago, maybe a right thing to look at. So I wrote a book. I wrote basically a book about the constitutional history of Canada. I realized that what has been taught in Western Canada and what is communicated in Western Canada, it's far from what is actually happening. So I did wrote the history of Canada based, of course, on the Quebec perspective, and how Quebec is now sovereign, and this is why they don't really seek for separation, because we do have a constitution in this country that gives more rights to the provinces than any states in the United States. If we look right now at the situation of Quebec, they collect their own tax, they have their own pension, they have their own immigration ministry, they have 38 embassies around the world. So when you go to Paris, you can go to Maison du Québec, not to the Canadian Embassy, but the Quebec Embassy in Paris, London, Tokyo, Washington. They have 2 representatives at the UN, not under Canada, under Quebec at the UN, and all that under the Constitution to which we're a part of as well. So basically the message I have to give you tonight is that we have to learn to be sovereign. We have to learn to, despite what happened, to give courage to our politician to require and to get what we can get under that constitution. When you look at the results of Quebec, they've been collecting their provincial taxes since 1957. They've been collecting their own pension since 1965. When you look at the raw result of the pension, so they started at the same time as the Canadian Pension Fund. So the Canadian Pension Plan, they decided not to cope in it. They decided to do their own. And now the Quebec Pension Plan has an investment fund of $500 billion for 6 million insured. The Canada Pension Plan has an investment fund of $700 billion, $200 billion more for 22 million insured. So which one performed the most? Not only that, but the pension plan of Quebec give an obligation to that pension plan to invest in Canada and in Quebec. So right now, that pension plan owns more real estate in Alberta than the government of Alberta itself. So the Cross Iron Mill in Calgary, this is the Quebec pension plan. The outlet here in Edmonton at the airport, this is the Quebec pension plan. Londonderry Mall in Edmonton, this is the Quebec pension plan. So when you look at the end result, it's way more advantageous to take control of what the Constitution tells you that you can take control of and just assert your right. Quebec, they do always ask forgiveness, never. And if the government is not happy, they can sue. And they do. There's one law in Quebec, Bill 101. It's the law that pushed the French over everything in Quebec. Well, that law has been challenged by the Supreme Court already 4 times. They are in the 5 rounds. So when Quebec receive a judgment for a judge from the Supreme Court, they just change the phrasing and put back the law in place. And this is what we should do when First Nations come and challenge our right to ask a freaking question. This would never have happened in Quebec, I can tell you. No, like the day a First Nation claimed for land in Quebec that was not theirs, in 1990 in Oka, well, the army came out and we kicked them out. Because we have agreement, and if you step on our feet, we'll answer. Here in Alberta, we just cave in from a judge coming from New Brunswick, putting a judgment that is a nonsense for democracy. So we need to start standing up and having a spine and just politically taking decisions for us, a sovereign decision for us. We collect right now $700 million a week in royalties. And where do we put that money? At the CIBC in Toronto. That money should stay here at the ATB and within the 13 credit unions that we are provincially owned. We let ourselves, we give them money. No, the first law that Premier Smith passed was a sovereign Alberta within United Canada. Bill number 2, 10 minutes after, was to add condition for us to get out of the Casa pension plan. So what message did she send in Ottawa? She said to Ottawa, don't worry, I bark loudly, but you can keep the money. So sovereignty starts with money. Sovereignty starts with collecting our own taxes. What do we need to collect our own taxes in Alberta? Do we need to separate? No. We need a majority vote under that dome in Edmonton, 47 hands up, and we collect our own money. What do we need for our own pension according to the Canada Pension Plan rules and not the crazy, stupid law that we add on top condition? 47 hands that raise the ledge, and we have a pension plan. What do we need to get our police? We got the police. What do we need to get our own embassies and control our own economical deals with all the other countries in the world? 47 hands raising in the ledge, and we got it. So it's time that we wake up. And this is what I'm talking about in that book. No? And then what I'm doing as well, I'm defining what is an Albertan. I think it's important at this stage, before even wanting separation, what is an Albertan? I mean, I moved there, I was 35 years old. But I consider myself an Albertan. My 4 kids are born here. My wife is from here. So I took time to define under why can I say that I am an Albertan. So I look at eight art strings that in my book literally define what is an Albertan. So I believe that an Albertan is, and this is very different from a Quebecer and even from an Easterner. So these are, I believe, the 8 values that we can attach to any Albertan. Heartstring number 1, enduring moral compass. So Judeo-Christian values define our laws and identity. Heartstring number 2, earned equality. Merit matters, not identity markers. Heartstring number 3, hands of freedom. Small government, stay in your lane. Heartstring number 4, pioneer grit. Family-centered, self-reliant, property-respecting. Heartstring number 5, real leaders, real results. Builders, not spenders. Conviction, not corruption. Heartstring number 6, wise land guardianship. Sustainable use by those who live here. Heartstring number 7, move or die accountability. Self-reliance, personal responsibility. Heartstring number 8, proud Canadian Albertan, honor the past, defend the future. I believe that if you agree to these 8 points, I believe you can call yourself an Albertan, even if you just moved there last week. If you come here and go against one of these 8 art strings, I believe you cannot call yourself an Albertan. And know what? In Quebec, my sister is Vietnamese. We adopted her in 1981. She was 13 years old. 5 years later, my dad works to get all her family back as well in Quebec, in Canada. All the family, dads, sisters, mothers, moved in 1987. And when you move in Quebec, under the immigration ministry, you have to go to a 5 days training. We tell you the history of Quebec, the values, what Quebec stands for. And at the end of the 5 days, you have to sign a social contract. If you do not sign that social contract, we won't give you a driver's license, we won't cover you under the health care, you're welcome to leave the province. And this is exactly what my sister's dad did. He didn't want to sign the contract, he moved to Toronto. Well, we need to do that. If we really want to protect our values, we need to do that. We need to define who we are and stand up for it and put guards around it to guard it. The same, I'm pro, I pray that one day we'll be able to work to annex the Northwest Territory. Northwest Territory should be Alberta. It was at the beginning. And then if we annex the Northwest Territory, then we don't need the feds to bring our pipelines to Tidewater. We can bring pipeline right in through provincial land up to Inuvik. So that's another project that I speaks into that. So anyway, so my message tonight is just like to take courage. I believe it's a long marathon campaign that we're going in. That question, which is hush-push of word salad, that question, though, opened the door to bring more assertion in our sovereignty. I am not a separatist. Since the beginning of this town hall, that I usually start with that, I am not a separatist. I believe that the process of separation in Canada has been so much the water is too muddy to go in that terrain. No, Quebec, so the Clarity Act in 2000, the day that the feds adopted it, the next morning, the Quebec legislature voted unanimously to reject it, saying that if ever Quebec goes back, we don't go by the Clarity Act. No, when King Charles came to give the throne speech, while he was giving his speech, the Quebec legislature, they voted unanimously to kick the crown out, and to stop to obey by royal assent. That now the lieutenant governor would be just a clerk relaying to Ottawa what the decision is taking in that room, and they put a for sale sign in front of the lieutenant governor's house, and then after that they took that new legislation that they voted unanimously, and they serve it in the hand of the king. They send a courier in Ottawa to give it end to end to the king. Here's what Quebec just vote. So that's how we need to do politics here. That's how we need to do politics in this country. And I tell you, if we take that position, Quebec will back us up. Quebec will walk with us. Quebec will be happy to help us gaining sovereignty. Because nobody in Quebec knows about the equalization. It's not even a subject. It doesn't cross the mind of anyone. There are way more about culture, about sovereignty, about autonomy than money. So let's work with them. Let's work with them in the plan. And hopefully, following that question, the referendum may be Quebec, Alberta, the same day at the same time, asking the same question. Thank you. So I guess it's Chris' turn, eh? So please welcome Chris Scott.
Thanks, Ben. Sorry, I wasn't really prepared. I was still trying to get through reading that question. It took me a little longer than I thought. I got to read it again. Is that okay? Do you mind? Should Alberta remain a province of Canada, or should the government of Alberta commence the legal process required under the Canadian Constitution to hold a binding provincial referendum on whether or not Alberta should separate from Canada? It is two questions. It is two questions. No, yeah, okay, it's two questions. It's not a yes or no, irrelevant because it's not a constitutional question. There's no teeth to this. If it was a constitutional question, it would have to be clear, it would have to be a yes or no. On your ballot with that, you're going to see probably two things. Should Alberta remain in Canada? And you're going to have a box. And the next one will be whatever that is. And there will be another box. None of this is relevant to us right now. Why is that? Because we're not begging the government to do something. We're building a movement to build a new nation. That's what we're doing. You know, the idea that we have to beg government or petition government to fulfill the will of the people is becoming more and more ridiculous sounding to me. You know, when we started this, and when I say we, obviously I'm not talking about the decades ago that Cory Morgan started. Decades. Quarter of a century. My goodness. I mean the time in which I've been involved in this, which has basically been about 6 years. And you know, ever since I moved to Alberta in 2000, I'm a BC converted to an Albertan. I've always thought, like, this is kind of the R word that we're in Confederation. Ridiculous is the R word, by the way. Like, why is Alberta okay with being subject to all these laws? And I worked in the energy industry, so of course I felt it, that impact us, and we can't change it. Like, why would we stay? I always wondered. So the idea of independence, of Alberta sovereignty, has always been, I've always thought about it in a positive way. You know, but we have this idea that it's always going to be the Danielle Smith or the Pierre Poilievre or whatever politician or political party or political movement is going to come and save us. And I've been kind of watching as people were, you know, just hanging on by their fingernails, waiting for this announcement. Like, what is this going to mean for the movement? What are we going to have to do? Are we going to be shut down? Is it going to stop everything? And I was kind of thinking that in the beginning too. And then I started to realize, wait a minute. I'm not thinking like an independence-minded individual. I'm not thinking about like someone who wants to be a sovereign nation. I'm thinking about somebody who's subjugated to a set of rules that they don't agree with, and they're never going to do anything about. So this answer or this statement from the Premier about the question that the government is going to permit to be asked to the people of Alberta just reinforces what I've said all along. This isn't about them, this is about us. This is about us building a movement that they have to get in front of. And this response from Premier Smith tells me that we haven't built the movement big enough for them to get in front of yet. Even with 700,000 Albertans putting pen to paper, pardon me, hundreds of thousands of Albertans, many of whom were not cartoon characters, putting their name or their pen to paper to compel the government to do something. You know, that's a big deal. These are a lot of firsts, right? For the first time in Alberta's history, we are mobilizing the people to do things that have never been done before. The last petition that I'm aware of in Alberta, I think we got 192,000 signatures to end the carbon tax and repeal Bill 10, which was the WCB on farms bill or something like that, back when the NDP was in power. And of course, it didn't do anything. They took those signatures to the steps of the legislature, they plunked them down, everyone celebrated that we did all this work and got all those signatures, then nothing happened. Why? Because again, they're begging the government to do something. We are not begging the government for anything. We are building a movement. We are building a parade. And those politicians, those people in government are not going to get in front of that parade until we've built it big enough. So are we going to, what are we going to do? Are we going to crap all over the Premier because we didn't get the question we wanted? Are we going to take to social media and start bashing everyone that doesn't agree with us? Or are we going to recognize that this is just one more stage, one more hurdle, one more step on a path that is maybe not a short path, There's going to be more setbacks. There's going to be more, more judges quashing your voice. This is just one more of them. And if we stew on this and allow ourselves to fall victim to the political maneuvering that we're about to see, and you are about to see it, there are some people who are playing for power right now. They want to govern you badly. And this is their ammunition, this is their fodder to confuse the masses and move them from a place of acting out of a desire to build a better future. They're going to harvest the anger and the ill will that people are feeling because of this, and they're going to use it to try and elevate themselves. You watch, mark my words, tomorrow it's going to happen. There's going to be people on X, we need to remove this person because of this. We need to remove that person. You know what those people aren't saying? We need to do better. We need to get to every town in Alberta and have these conversations and change the hearts and minds of the people that are making up this parade. They're not saying, we need to focus on education so every man, woman, child, and chihuahua in Alberta knows why we need to be independent. They're not saying those things. They're saying, come with me. We're going to dethrone someone that you shouldn't like so that I can take their place and I can be that person next month. That's what this is going to be. Don't let them fool you. And don't see this as the end of the world, a drawback or anything. As a matter of fact, the more I think about it, and the more I contemplate Ben's book, by his book, by the way, the more I think about this, I'm actually wondering if this isn't a blessing in disguise. Why is it a blessing? Okay, maybe we don't get our constitutionally toothed question in October. But what do we get? We get something we've never had before. We get an opportunity for the will of Albertans to manifest in an answer to a referendum question that may not be perfect, but it will have some sort of teeth. Those consultations that are necessary, and I really believe, and I'm talking about First Nations consultations, I really believe we need to stop looking at this as an obstacle, and instead we need to look at it as an opportunity, especially considering that according to recent polls, 46% of First Nations people want a sovereign Alberta. That is a huge opportunity for us to talk with people, engage with them, bring them to this parade, get them involved, and then turn them into disciples for independence as well. This is an opportunity for consultation with First Nations people. It's not a roadblock. It's not an annoyance. This is a blessing. Why? Because they're Albertans too. And if this hadn't have happened, maybe we wouldn't have that opportunity. Maybe we would be going into a constitutionally valid referendum unprepared because we hadn't had a chance to have those conversations with those people yet. Now we do. We get to, I would say, what's the word? Campaign, educate, move towards this referendum with a question that is imperfect as it is, will give us some opportunities. We get to work even harder to try and have more conversations with more people to build the movement even bigger so that next time a judge tries to block the will of the people, the movement's too big. I hear people talking about reform, referenda, revolution. I hear all of these words all of the time. And you know what they all require? Participation. Absolutely. No matter what path Alberta takes, no matter where we go, we cannot do it unless we do it together. It doesn't matter if you think that your liberal neighbor is what's the L word that we call them again? Wow, I can't believe you folks said that. I was thinking of something completely else, something else and less rude. No. We have to stop looking at the people who don't share our political preference as our enemies and as our opponents, because they're not. The First Nations people that are unsure about Alberta independence and concerned about how Alberta independence may affect their treaty rights, they're not our enemies. They are our allies. We just haven't had the conversations yet. Do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see the opportunity that we just got because of that question? An opportunity that we didn't have even an hour ago, well, more than an hour ago, because the other speakers always take up so much time?
Keep calling us back.
Yes. Well, we all love you. Everything that happens to us from this day forward, which is the first day of the rest of your lives, by the way, is an opportunity to either succeed, to do better, maybe to fail and learn how to do better next time. This is how we have to start thinking. Not like victims to government, victims to a question, victims to Thomas Lukaszuk. But as sovereign individuals with our eye on a prize, we have a goal, we're going to go there, and we're going to go there together, no matter what gets thrown in front of us. We will look at all of these things as an opportunity to build, an opportunity to speak, to listen, and to advance Alberta towards sovereignty. Now I have something even more important that I want to talk about. My friend Murray was introduced earlier. I want to point out some of the things that we've experienced in the last few years since the people were sneezing and the hospitals were overrun. Pardon me, I shouldn't make light of it. The things that have occurred in the last 6 years changed many of us. They changed me. If those things hadn't happened, if the government hadn't wiped out my entire financial security, hadn't bled my savings dry, wiped out all my business capital, and put me in a position where I had to fight, I would have never met Murray. If I hadn't met Murray, I wouldn't have heard one of the stories about what happens when government are retarded. I wouldn't have heard that story, and I wouldn't be standing here today. Do you mind if I share just a little bit, Murray? So Murray's wife should be with him today. And during COVID, our government, instead of focusing on people and listening to them and doing better, they left people behind. They failed people like Murray and his wife, who's no longer with us. Those stories would never have happened. I would have never heard those stories if it wasn't for the things that I consider the most horrible things that happened in my life. They brought people like us together. They brought people like you and I together. These things that we consider so negative and so dastardly are the very things that created the conditions for the beautiful blessings we have right now. Do you see what I'm saying? So no, I'm not going to delve into a political frenzy and start ripping politicians new ones because they didn't have the spine to do what maybe some of us would have done. I'm not going to start throwing people that disagree with me under the bus because, I want to flail and thrash around. I've still got my eye on the prize. It's Alberta sovereignty. I know that the way we get there is by talking to each other. That's why Let's Talk Alberta exists. And that's what I'm going to do. And one of the major reasons why I've been so hyper-fixated on this opportunity that Alberta has is because I want to make damn sure that all of the people that the government screwed over, all of the people that were harmed and killed by things that our government did to us over the last however many years, I want to make sure that those people will be accountable in the future. And I'll tell you right now, under this situation, under this Constitution, they will not be accountable. They never will be. They're never meant to be. They literally legislated protections so they couldn't be accountable to the crimes they commit against you. And if we want accountability for what's been done to us, we need to do something different. We need to think differently. We need to focus on that and where we need to go to get that. And then we need to go there and we need to do it together. So that's why we're going to continue this. Nothing changes for Let's Talk Alberta, although I do believe we can be a little bit more pro-independence, because obviously there's not going to be an independence question on the ballot, right? So that's not going to, we're going to be able to advertise. We can do more things. Can you believe it? Just a few hours ago, I was thinking, okay, how do we advertise Let's Talk Alberta to get people in rooms like this so we can have these conversations without violating the Elections Finance Act and advertising outcome of the referendum? That's a fine line to walk. You know what we can do now? We can put billboards all over Alberta that say, Alberta has whatever, 6 senators, Ontario and Quebec have 80 together or whatever. We can put billboards that say Alberta sovereignty, the solution. Things like that. We can start massively educating Albertans on the actual issues, the actual topics, all the way up until this question. And once we do that, when we do that, the politicians that kind of politically sidestep the question today, they're going to know that they have to give us the question they want. So please consider this an opportunity. Sorry I took so long. We're going to break for 10 minutes. Then we're going to come back for a Q&A. So please, I really hope you have questions. And I actually, even more so, I hope you have opposition points to what I said. I hope some of you disagree with me and want to challenge me on any of these things. I welcome it. We welcome it. And for those of you watching online, same thing. Make sure you put question marks in front of your questions so me or Max can see what the questions are, and we'll answer them. Tough questions. Anyway, let's come back in 10 minutes.
The speakers are being set with their respectable microphones.
So while people are getting up here, I'll just explain that picture I got Max to throw up there to show my stubborn ass. It's me with Ralph Klein in 2001 with the Alberta Independence Party. So I just wanted to remind everybody, if I can wait 25 years for this, we can do 2 or 3 more if we have to, guys. We'll get there.
So that's the picture. For those who are watching online, this is the picture, by the way, with Ralph Klein and Cory Morgan down there.
Wiry and gray now. And I used to have pecs, not breasts.
Lol.
Oh, a piss hole drilled into a snowbank.
Yeah.
I was about to really yedling this.
We'll have to use the one mic.
Okay.
Oh. Can I borrow that for a second?
Yeah,
I just wanted to point out that 26 years is a quarter of a century.
Yes.
Just in case anyone's
I know that.
wondering. Okay. Before we get going, one of the initiatives that we're working on with Let's Talk Alberta are these trifolds. So they're just little things. This is one of the old ones. It's missing some stuff. But it's just a thing that goes in the mail or goes in on a windshield or whatever, and it's got some points about Alberta, just some information like, we have 37 of 343 seats in House of Commons, and, it talks about our senators. It talks about some of the stuff that is unfixable right now. And then as we have different initiatives come up, we do different trifolds. And these kind of are getting distributed down through our organizational structure to boots on the ground teams. And then those teams, they just print a bunch of these off, fold them up, take them to the Canada Post and do a neighborhood mail. This one that I just did today, and haven't had anyone actually proofread for me, is specifically for Lacombe, and it's got the Lacombe May 26th, Yeah, May 26th chicken and rib dinner event with music and stuff like that. So it's kind of encouraging people to get out and go to that, buy a ticket. But then on the inside, there's 14 of the most common holdbacks of why people want to continue with the status quo. So for instance, the first one in here is, Alberta can't legally separate. And then we have our answer. The same 1998 ruling, the reference secession of Quebec, confirms a clear majority on a clear question, creates a constitutional obligation on Ottawa and the provinces to negotiate in good faith. That is a legal pathway, not a roadblock. And it's just got answers to those 14 questions. So please, before you leave, grab one of these or two, check it out. And if you're interested in helping us get these things out, you can get in touch with us, and you'll probably end up in touch with Patty. And then we'll get you these resources and get you organized in teams so you can do that kind of thing. And then we can do what it says on the front, which is, let's talk about it. Okay.
I have the first question tonight.
Can't hold the mic.
Mine is sort of a question, but a
Get closer to the mic, please.
And a statement in the form of a question. 13 days before the October referendum, there's a certain thing that's going to happen in Quebec. And it looks like the Parti Québécois will end up winning. And part of their mandate within their party is that if they win a majority, they're going to have a referendum within 1 year. How is that going to affect ours? Will that affect if they win their referendum? How close are we going to be behind them?
Well, I will put a caveat on the 1 year. So Plamondon, the leader of the PQ right now, have put a caveat linked to Orange Man. So down east, they are under the total COVID effect of Trump over them. So basically, the caveat he brought to his party is that he will wait for Trump not to be in power anymore prior to consider a referendum. So yeah, so that's how they are afraid of Trump down east.
Wow.
But that said, two things. First, that the question that is now asked, I opened the door to develop something very, very cool. And once the PQ is there, one thing, if they don't do a referendum, one thing that they will do definitely is talk about the referendum. And there's a chair, a research chair at Montreal University that has been started in 1968 that's still running. It's led by Daniel Turp, who used to be MP under the Bloc and then MLA or MNA in Quebec under the Parti québécois, professor of law, just retired 5 years ago, and Lucien Bouchard is on that board and all that. So that chair has like a full wall of studies and all that, all to assert your sovereignty within the Canadian Constitution and how can we, how to prepare for full sovereignty. And I believe that it's imperative that we start building that bridge with Quebec, and with the PQ in place, it gives us the perfect opportunity to build that bridge with Quebec. And again, my dream, my personal dream, always be to have a referendum, Quebec-Alberta, on the same question, the same day, at the same time. And that's I believe, that become possible now.
Okay, my wife and I, we've been to quite a few of these already, but there's one thing that every time I leave, nobody has mentioned, other than Danielle did tonight, and that is the amount of senators and Supreme Court judges, why the West will never win one thing because they've got it cut off. I believe there's 125 senators, 15 are conservative. 23 judges, 5 conservative. Never will we win a thing unless we go independent.
You're right, and that's why we talk about that all the time. That's actually the second page on our first trifold that we ever did, talking about the structural imbalance of power within Confederation. And you're 100% correct. There really is, I mean, all but zero way that Alberta affect federal policy to make things better for ourselves. You're 100% right. And Danielle knows that. She knows that.
Something I mentioned to some others earlier, though, that helps build, in a sense, even if it's not intentional, support for independence. Every time Premier Smith tries something like that and fails, more people realize there's only one option in the end. So when they realize Senate reform is impossible, changes on the federal courts are impossible, then Albertans have those two choices: accept those impossibilities or find our way out of the system.
Now that we're on Plan B solidly, what are our logical steps? Like, for example, the UCP AGM, and the other thing is getting things like the Alberta Pension Plan and the police on a referendum. At least can we do those steps? So what are our next steps now that we're on Plan B? Yeah, Ben, you love it. Go.
Well, I believe that our next step, or our step that we have to start tomorrow, is keep on building on Alberta sovereignty. Keep on pushing Alberta sovereignty, keep on cornering our politicians to act as sovereign leaders and as people that take Alberta on their side and push it forward. So I don't know on the UCP itself how or why we should do something there. I'm not sure that this is the right battleground at this stage. I believe that at this stage we need to keep on doing what we're doing right now, gathering people under a cause of sovereignty, informing, teaching people about what it is to be sovereign, and then push the agenda. And you know what? When I was talking about the referendum, Quebec-Alberta, it's not a referendum to reopen the Constitution. The Constitution is, you know what? In 1982, with the 750 clause, Trudeau put the Constitution in a safe and threw the key at the sea. That constitution cannot be changed, cannot be reopened. Forget that. It's impossible. It's an impossibility. And this is what Quebec realized, that was our campaign in 1995 during the referendum. What we need to do is to find provincial partners at this stage, and again, taking all the resources that Quebec has been building for the past 60 years, and then building a new deal. And then coming Quebec, Alberta, we don't want to reopen the Constitution, we don't want to change it, otherwise this is how we want to operate from now on. And I believe this is the way forward.
I'm going to tell you a very disturbing truth, and then I'll ask you if you think getting involved with, within a party will work. These days, and I think it's been this way for a long time, our politicians don't advocate for positive change. They do what Ralph Klein famously said, and they find a parade and get in front of it. They don't create a parade, they find one and get in front of it. Well, Danielle Smith is no different. And I don't think there's really any of our politicians in today's political climate that have a cause, like a legitimate cause, a real change cause. They get a soapbox, they get up and they stand on it and they start talking about it. And they bring people to them. They're leaders, right? That's what a leader does. You want to go and do something, and people will follow you as a leader. They don't do that. They just find what the status quo is and try and get in front of it so they can get elected and start feeding at the trough. That's true. We know that's true. So how do we get the politicians to do what we want? How do we make sure that the output of the political system is the output that we want? We have to become the parade that they get in front of. That's why things are so tense right now within the UCP for sure, because there's a very large part of the UCP, estimated 60 to 70%, that want Alberta independence, Alberta sovereignty. They do. But the UCP is like, okay, well, maybe it's 40% provincial-wide, and they want to stay in power. So they don't want to piss off their base and have the party crumble because of it. And they don't want to lose an election. So they're kind of in this tricky spot, and they're going to keep doing things like this. And the only way to fix that is to stop thinking in partisan politics. Yes, be involved, do all those things, because that's democracy for sure. But think bigger picture, think movement, think the parade. We got to keep becoming the parade and make it so big that they have to get in front of it. And all of a sudden, these problems with division in politics, they kind of crumble to the side because we are the majority and they will get in front of us.
Just for the UCP, we're talking about the provincial police, we're talking about the provincial pension plan. You know that was voted at the AGM. I was part of the online AGM under Kenny there, because we couldn't gather together, and they made their AGM online and we could vote online and all that. And at that AGM, it was my first AGM with the UCP in 2020, I believe. And at the AGM, I was all excited because all these stuff were being voted in, like provincial police. What have they done 6 years later? Nothing with it. This is unacceptable. And if you are an activist within the UCP, what we need to do is make sure that they do what we voted for them to do. Because the UCP is a private club with members. We are the members, and as the president of a private club, you need to do what your members ask for before anything else, and they are not doing that. So the activism we have to do at the UCP is strictly to hold them accountable to do what we vote for. All these policies that we vote for, we want them put in the legislature sooner than later.
So 2 questions, actually. Question number 1.
Just 1 sec. Sorry, pardon me.
Just to go back to the UCP and what Ben says is exactly correct. At that AGM, there will be a bunch of policies and a bunch of resolutions for the membership to vote on. And we've done that, and a lot of those policies were not implemented the way that they were supposed to be done. That's a fact. And so the more members that are at this year's AGM, the more pressure. That's why I was saying it's that two-pronged approach, right? This is putting those pieces together. So this is the two-pronged approach. The more of us who are members that are at that AGM to call them to account and say, how come you didn't do this? What's going on? There's 10,000 of us here. Why didn't you do this when we asked you to? Oh, and by the way, we got 10 of our CAs to put in a policy saying we want to bring that pension home. We want that to be a policy to bring Alberta pension here. That's how we do it. That's that two-pronged approach, within and outside. We need both. We need Chris Ayall traveling around doing this, helping people understand how to fight the battle from out here, and then we need the others inside the party to fight it from within there. And so, yeah, I think you guys they built that bridge right there. But I just wanted to give that example because somebody brought up a pension. Pension is really, Cory, you did, right? That pension is a really big deal. Well, if there's 10,000 of us at that meeting and we all vote yes, we want an Alberta pension, not a CPP, then that's one step. And then you go all over your MLAs to vote for that in. You keep on them, you keep on them, you keep on them until they do it.
Okay, so... Oh. Yeah, there are some questions online, that's why. Okay. I know that there is a lot of talks and discomfort and people getting very salty and mad about the speech that Danielle Smith has done today. What exactly can you say to those people not necessarily seeing the way that you guys seem to think, which is about the strategy? Many people are very discomfort. They're probably very angry about the situation. They're gonna drop the towel and say, this is BS. What exactly can you tell them? That's question 1 or out of 2, by the way.
Nobody wants to touch it.
Well, that's fine. I mean, if you're upset, you're impatient, I understand. It's certainly not what a lot of people wanted to see or where they wanted to go. But once you cool down and think about things, I just say take a pragmatic approach. How can you make things better? How can we move forward and carry on with the structure and base we've already done, the accomplishments we already have? Think to yourself on how we can do it, because we can. And we're talking about these things tonight and things like that. So take a sleep on it. Have a brandy, go to bed. And, there's a lot we can work on to move forward with this. Just don't get on with the pitchforks and torches like some people are trying to do out there. Because try to ask yourself then, what would happen if that accomplished it? What would happen if you had an August meeting and you tore the premier out and then you had a 6-month leadership race? Where have we gotten anywhere closer to independence through all of that?
And it's a resilience thing. We are known as a resilient people. We're fairly frontierish in our DNA, our identity. And this is stuff and we've got too cotton picking soft over the years because we've never had really any conflict. So when something like this gets thrown at us, the world's gonna end. It's a Chicken Little thing. But we have to look for the ways we can get through. Politics always has loopholes. Well, start thinking like loopholes. Look at the things that we can do and don't give up. Don't see this as the end of the world. The sky has not fell and we're still here. The sun is coming up tomorrow morning, I guarantee you. And just take it, but be resilient. Look for those ways to get around it.
Question 2 out of 2. This is for Kathy Flett. For Kathy. You mentioned about getting more on strategy, about getting to the CA boards and that sort of thing. Many people don't have a clue what a CA is and what's the rationale and what is important. Can you expand on that? Don't worry, the microphones are very sturdy. Those all good SM58s from Shure.
Sorry, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what's a CA? Why do we want to What is it and why do we want to do it?
Yep.
CA is a constituency association. That's what it stands for. There's 87 of them because we have 87 constituencies. That's how our province is broken up. That's why we have 87 MLAs. Each of those constituencies represents a chunk of territory within the province, right? And that territory is then represented in the legislature by an MLA. Now, it doesn't matter whether your MLA is a conservative or is an NDP or is an independent. You can still have a UCP-CA or an NDP-CA in all of those constituencies. Now, the point of those constituencies are they are the boots on the ground. They are the ones that get out in the community, try to find out what's going on with the people. What do you want to see? How is your MLA doing well? How is your MLA not doing well? And then goes back to say, to relay that message back. The other reason to have a constituency is because come election time, their job is to help their candidate and to choose their candidate. Important. CAs choose the candidate. Now, the main party has to approve that candidate as well, but nevertheless, that's where it begins, and then they help that person get elected. So, if you have an MLA right now that you really like, well, then you probably want to get onto that day so that you can support their next campaign in 2027. If we even, well, by the sounds of it now, we will probably have an election next year. I was hoping we'd be voting in a president next year, but anyway, we'll see how that goes. But if you like your MLA, then you're going to want to get on there. That's a great way to support them. The other thing that a CA does is submits policies. Policy submissions and resolution submissions for the AGM for us to all be able to vote on. So it's sort of like a little mini government structure within the big structure that gives you a say. That is where you can really have a voice within the party. Now, to understand the power that these CAs have, it was the CAs that got together to get rid of Kenny. That wasn't regular Albertans. That was if you have an X amount of CAs, is it 21? 27? 27 CAs, if 27 of them, those boards, they operate as a board. You can have up to 30 people, so you'll have a president, a CFO, a secretary, and then a whole bunch of vice presidents of this, that, and the other thing. So if you get 27 of them to all agree that, yes, we would like to have a special general meeting and discuss as a party where we sit on the independence question, 27 CAs can make that happen, and it doesn't matter what. Is it 22? All right, somebody will tell me the right number eventually, but it's 20-something. And that doesn't matter what the Premier and her cabinet or her caucus want. That is how you have a voice within the party. There's some other things that you can help with fundraising. It's actually a really fun way to get to meet other people and to get to know your neighbors as well, including those living in other parts of the province. So it's a real kind of a on-the-ground way of getting involved without maybe having to be the face of something. If you're not into that, being pummeled on X or on Facebook like some of us are, you can still do some work in the background on there. It's a way to pick the candidate that you would like to see represent you, especially if you're not happy with the one that you have. And it is a way to make changes within the UCP party as a whole. And the more of us there are within these parties and sitting on these CAs and participating, the better, because then that handcuffs the politicians. Yeah, add to that, please.
No, just a quick self-serving plug. The Sovereigntist Handbook that I wrote that is back there has an entire chapter on how to join a CA and participate in it.
Yeah.
And just quickly, in 95, when the referendum in Quebec happens, before the referendum, the PQ, so Parizeau was elected in September 94 and promised to have a referendum within 1 year. But there was a snag in his plan, is that there was a bunch of young guys that had just been elected and got 7% of the vote that was needed to get the yes answer. And that was me and the group. We founded a political party, and we got 7% of the votes. Our leader was elected. And all that to say that now that I'm looking at that question, it looks a lot like we were the crab disturber at the time. And we made a lot of PQ members very, very angry at us. And we made a lot, even liberal, very, very angry at us. So much I had one of my car vandalized, and I had a death threat thrown to my living room window at the time for the position we're taking, because we are the one that wrote that word salad and put that condition of that trigger. So somehow I find that, why am I saying that? Is that the campaign, when it happened, what happened is that we did our own campaign, the ADQ, our little party, the Bloc did their own campaign, and the PQ did their own campaign. This is how they kind of manage the peaceful walk towards that referendum. And so I can see that as well. I can see our multiple group to keep on doing campaign, toward the same goal. And this is why I really like the message of Chris, that let's keep our eyes on the prize, because this is the goal.
I forgot what my question was. But I'm interested in these constituency, because I live in Beaver County, but we're in the Camrose constituency. So I believe it's one of the biggest ones in Alberta. I'm not sure, but if we get together and get in on that and just keep pushing, that's what I believe is the next step. Or I don't know. I'm interested in finding out what, because we did all the petitioning, we got all these signatures, and then thud. So this is opening up to what we have to do next, I guess.
Yeah, and those your CA will have lots of meetings that might be just open to members, and there's some will be just for the CA board. So go to them, see what it's like. Patty's on that board. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, so is Shane.
That's funny. Oh. Yeah, lots of online questions actually. It's like just going like boom, like this is kind of cool. And this is a $10 super chat, so thank you very much. Questions for the panel. Since Danielle Smith hasn't implemented most of the UCP policies, which one I don't know, why would we trust her now? She's a federalist.
Because she hasn't what? Sorry, I missed the part of
She hasn't implemented most of the UCP policies. Which one, I don't know, but...
Well, there's been some. The problem with party policies is there's actually nothing in there that compels our legislators to act on them. And that's a bit of a gap that some people, including myself, have been trying to figure out a way to close that gap for a couple years. I think it will happen eventually, but I don't know. I've watched Smith do things where I just stood in the kitchen and bashed my head against the wall, for sure. I've watched things where I immediately went and did a podcast saying, listen, I don't agree with everything, but I got to give her kudos for what she just did because nobody else will do this, right? She's not perfect. And I don't think she has given us any reason not to trust her. She does what she says she's going to do. She says that she's going to respect the will of the people. She did, to the point of like publicly challenging the ruling that Justice Leonard did. Like, how many other politicians would do that, right? And here's the other part that's more important. Don't be so concerned about whether or not you can trust this person or that person, because you have no way of controlling what they're going to do. But you can control what you are going to do and how you're going to respond, right? Danielle Smith is not our savior. None of these politicians are our saviors. If you're looking for perfection, there was only one and we put him on a cross. Look and see what you can do before you worry about what they're doing. Shane, was there any questions from the other? Nothing?
No.
Can I ask one?
No.
Do you think Daniel Smith has the stomach to go and maybe start collecting federal and provincial taxes like Ben talks about? I don't know if you want to answer it, Chris, or whatever.
Just recently, I watched her do a press release talking about how, they weren't really super keen on looking at that because it's going to cost some money and there's no appetite for it. And I'm like, actually, I heard you at the moment. I heard Ben's response, and we were like 100 kilometers away from each other. How can you purport to believe in a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada if you're unwilling to take the first step towards sovereignty? Amen. The golden rule. He who has the gold rules. Yeah. We need to collect our own taxes, right? So I don't know if there's some disconnect or some really terrible advisors. Actually, I know that she has some terrible advisors and she should probably just fire them all and hire all new ones. Same with the comms team. Get rid of them all and hire all new ones. But these are some of the things that we need to be vocal about at AGMs, bring them up at your CA board meetings, whatever. We have to start doing those things. And this is a case where we can actually use what she said she wants to do to get what we want. You said you want a sovereign Alberta with the United Canada. Okay, first step to sovereignty, let's collect our own taxes. Yeah. What is she going to say to that? Oh, it costs too much? I don't care. I want to be sovereign. We want sovereignty, and sovereignty might cost something, right?
The first signal that they can do tomorrow morning, if they were serious about keeping our money here, will be to keep our royalties here. And to do that, it's one letter, one paragraph from Brian Jean to his deputy minister saying, shut down the account at CIBC, open an account at ATB to collect a royalty tomorrow. That's the only thing That's the only thing needed. Doesn't need a vote, doesn't need anything. This is administrative procedure in our government. And they're not even doing it. So on the money side, yeah.
But she said it's because there doesn't seem to be appetite, right? Yeah. So we need to show that we have that appetite. And the only way we can do that is by getting Albertans in rooms like this and explaining to them why we need to have that appetite.
Okay, two things. AGM 2 years ago, there was approximately 5,000 people in the room. We had the Bill of Rights that the Black Hats had put up, and it was like, I wasn't in the room, I could see the room. I would have loved to have counted how many people voted against it. It was not many for those who were in the room, right? What have they done with that? Nothing.
The Bill of Rights
that was
completely bastardized?
Yes, that one. So there's
that
one.
Yeah, well, they did something to it.
So then there was 5,000 people in that room. We need 10,000 people in that room this year. And the other thing is, people were asking about CAs. Another thing the CAs do, and if you want to have some influence, then you have to be active. Because right now is the stage where they are setting up their local nominating committees so that if somebody wants to put their head in the game and try to be the MLA, they're doing that now. So if you have somebody that you think might be a good MLA, then you need to back them and encourage them and say, here are the papers, fill them out. Because that's the time now. And if we can get some of these MLAs changed, like she said, all the guys on the caucus or whatever, they're all sovereignty. Well, I'm pretty sure that there's some that are just being quiet. So, but that's another way you can influence and be on the CA, is talk to your guys that are local that, yeah, I don't know if I want to be an MLA. I'll encourage them and say, I'll back you, I'll get people behind you. But that is now.
I will tell you why they're quiet. Sir Jason, he's the MLA of Red Deer South, I believe. And Jason made a comment on the weekend a month ago about inviting people to, encouraging people to sign that petition because it's important in the democratic process. Well, it was very hush-hush, but he had to resign as he has like a secretary position in the cabinet, and he had to resign the next week. So that's why they're not putting their head out.
Resigned from MLA.
Not as a, no, but
Just that little
there's
position,
parliamentary secretary.
Right.
And parliamentary secretary give you budget, give you one assistant more, and give you a bit more money per year. Well, he made that comment on Saturday, and the whip forced him to resign on the Wednesday from secretary parliamentary.
We have a new whip now too.
Explain.
Yeah, well, because Hunter is a minister of environment
Just
now.
explain what the whip is, because people don't.
So whip is what it's called. It's a whip. So basically, it's the person that is in charge to make sure that everybody vote according to what the party wants everybody to vote for. So a whip is there to sit with you and to explain you the rule of the House, saying that you better vote for that project of law, and if you talk against it, you will be punished. So that's the role of a whip. And then you make sure that everybody showing, and then the way to avoid what the whip asks you is not to show up. So the one of the only way out of a vote that the whip is used is to be sick and not to show out for the vote. Because otherwise, if you show up, you need to do what the whip tells you to do. It's a party. It's a private club.
It's a club, yeah. I'm gonna give you my opinion as to why we ask for these things and they don't happen. Like Patty, why was it almost unanimous that we supported that proposed Bill of Rights that the Black Hats came up with, and they did something else? It's because our politicians, their dream is to do absolutely nothing and get reelected. Short of that, they want to do as little as possible and get reelected. They don't want to do anything because everything they do could make it so that they're no longer government. Do you understand what I'm saying? They don't want to make waves. They want the status quo. They want what's comfortable. They want what's known. And any time they can avoid making a difficult choice like that Bill of Rights, they'll do it. I was watching this unfold, and I was texting a minister and an MLA saying, what are you guys thinking? I'm watching the legislature talking about this, and they're talking about putting a Section 1 clause into the Bill of Rights, right? Which is exactly why we're in this problem in Canada right now since 1982. And I said, do you not understand why are you doing this? This is not what we asked for. And they're like, what are you talking about? We're giving you guys what you want. We're putting this in there, we're putting that in there. I said, didn't you learn anything when you were sitting in my restaurant with me illegally drinking coffee and talking about how Section 1 allowed the government to do these things? Oh, well, this is different. We wouldn't do that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you people are just, like, they will literally gaslight and not do anything over doing anything. And it's the Bill of Rights thing, like that, this question, same thing. They don't want anything to change, and they'll take every opportunity to not do it.
And I would say the main problem in this cabinet, actually, is that most ministers are good friends with the deputy minister. They listen. So when you become a minister of a certain department, often you don't know squat about whatever you're ministering over. So then you depend on your deputy minister to inform you how the machine works and what you can do, what you cannot do. But legally speaking, if you tell the deputy minister to go on his knees and say 10 Hail Mary, he has to do it because you're the minister. And here, the minister in Alberta that I know, and I know multiple ones personally, I will ask the question, how's your deputy minister? Oh, he's great. This is the worst answer you want to hear from a minister. You have to be at war with the deputy minister because it will always feed you what they want you to feed and what they want the machine to stay. And this is why in that government that we have a bunch of ministers and a premier that are all good chummy with their deputy ministers because they trust them. They're not trustable. They need to be challenged. They need to be fired sometimes. They need to be put to the grind and to get what you're doing. And you're the boss. So today, if I told you to do that, you do that. And anyway, so I believe that's one of the biggest problems we have in our actual cabinet in this government is that they follow what the bureaucrats tell them to do or what the bureaucrats tell them that they cannot do. where they can have all the power to do stuff. No? So this is why some laws take 2 years to go through the process, and some others, when the premier say get the F up that, it's done in 2 days. Well, you can act always like that. Get the F up done that, well, it's on right away, because this is how our system, Westminster system, works. And but a lot of ministers don't even know the power that they have, or they don't want to use it, or they don't use it.
I have a lot of people asking questions online. $5 super chat, Bill, Stephen Jensen, thank you. Questions for the panel. What do you think that a new separatist party is going to do after today's announcement? Basically, he was asking, is there any kind of benefit to start a separate movement, a separatist party, instead of working with the UCP, basically?
Well, as I showed that picture up on the wall with me trying to start an independence party 25 years ago, and I think there's been about a dozen independence parties come and go since then, and there's about 4 or 5 of them, I think, registered right now. None of them can garner over 1% support. They're all broke. If anything, they're fighting with each other. It's shown that whatever our path is, anyways, to independence, the party, a new party, is not going to be the one to do it. I had a nice text or a comment from Cam Davies. He surfaced on X, actually, and I asked him how his legal fund is with the Republican Party, and he hasn't answered since. But either way, I mean, I understand people are looking for different alternatives. They're looking for different ways. And, you know, we talk about the frustration of the existing party and how it exists just to stay in power, and it's like pushing something uphill with a rake. And it's frustrating, but with what people are talking about is get involved with the party that's in power, impact that party, influence the party, push them, don't allow them to get away with mailing it in. And as much work as that is, it's still a tiny fraction of what the work is to try and start a party from scratch, plus risk. Premier Nenshi, because that's all we need in one more election is somebody pulling 10% out of the UCP, and the NDP will win. So I think we'd be better served to try our hardest to fix up the UCP than to try and challenge it from outside. That's my view on it anyway.
And to remember that we are the government. We are the people. Sounds like a really weird thing to say, but we have to get off our butts and quit voting once a year or once every 4 years and then complaining for the next 4 years about the guy that got in. We got to get involved, and that's a tough thing to do, but you know, it's like several of these gentlemen and ladies here tonight have said, we got to think different.
Okay. Just a note on the political parties. You know what political parties can do? They can campaign, right? So we have 4, potentially 5 independence parties in Alberta. They can all fundraise. They all have elector lists that they're allowed to use. They can contact Albertans, they can send out information. So these parties can play an actual vital role in helping us achieve the sovereignty that we desire, because they can get this information out. As we've seen in the news, when you get into a campaign period, there's a lot of rules around it. And you got to walk a fine line and make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, or crossing your I's, I'm not sure. And so these can be very, very valuable parts of this. So I wouldn't write them off. I don't think we're going to be electing people in independence parties to form government and have a declaration of independence, but they certainly have a very, very useful purpose.
Sorry, I'm just glad you mentioned it. Sorry, I keep putting you off, but I did a video recently on that because Stephen Carter, a notorious left-wing organizer, tried to take over the little rump that's the Alberta Liberal Party in order to use it to campaign for the Forever Canadian side in an upcoming referendum. And he wanted to utilize it just like actually Chris was talking about, not to run candidates in general elections, but then you have a unit that gives a very healthy tax credit for donations that is allowed to campaign openly on those things. And yes, has access to electors list, but my lord, you don't share it with anybody. And there are some assets. So if a party could kind of get its stuff in the aisle well enough to have that sort of mandate and go ahead and be trustworthy, it definitely, as Chris mentioned, could be a very useful tool. Or which sense? Or would it?
Lukasik is doing that.
Has he got a party yet?
Forever Canadian opened up a campaign office, and I think they're seeking that status.
Oh, yeah, he's opened an office, but he isn't seeking the status. Carter's all pissed at him because he won't.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
They're fighting with each other. It's nice. Fabio.
Okay, just one more question now. So earlier when you guys were talking about like our ministers and that, and none of, they're not doing what we're asking. What do you foresee once we're independent that we don't get into that same rut?
Good one.
A constitution with provisions enshrined that prevent the situation we're in right now.
I'm also going to echo what Ben said. Once we have a new government, a new system of government with new people in that system of government that we know we can trust, and we have a constitution with which to run that government under, don't stay home. Don't just decide that, oh, okay, my job is done. I can put my feet up now for the next 50 years. No, you can't. Because people are people. We're just wired to be doing dumb stuff sometimes. And so we need to hold one another to account. And that includes even as the Republic of Alberta. You need to stay engaged. You need to teach the next generation how to stay engaged. And you need to teach the generation after that how to stay engaged. Because unfortunately what has happened is this latest crew that just came out of school, they were literally taught, you don't need to pay attention. And you don't talk about it either. That's what they were taught in school. Don't talk politics. Don't worry about it. Just let the politicians do it. They know what they're doing. And they're the next ones coming up, right? And so these poor kids are right now in a culture shock as their eyes are being opened to what is actually going on and how much they've been lied to. So they deserve a little extra compassion from us and a little extra patience. And now it looks like we're going to have some extra time to be able to help them find out what it was they were lied to about while they were in the education system that we will also get out of in the Republic of Alberta, by the way, where our kids can be kids and they're not going to be used as little social justice warriors and told that they're something that they're not. They will just be men, young men and young women as we raise them up to be the leaders of tomorrow.
Just to follow up, Kathy, we actually lived it with our little 11-year-old grandson. He is very politically inclined, challenges his teacher, who is a long ways from independent Alberta. His schooling was not healthy.
No. I remember about 15 years ago, a little bit more than 15 years ago, my oldest son, my house was the house. You know, there was always one. That was me. My house was the house. And every Friday and every Saturday night from about 6:30 until 9 o'clock, there would be 15 teenagers in my kitchen sitting on the floor chatting with me before they were going to go out on their quads and whatnot for the evening. We lived out in an acreage community. And I remember one specific night, one of the girls said to me, I learned more about politics in these last 2 hours than I have learned in the last 10 years of school. And these kids kept coming back because they were hungry, they wanted to know more. And that's unfortunately and that was 15-ish years ago, so it's worse now. So good on you guys for making sure that those next generations are learning, because at home right now is pretty much the only place they're going to learn it. Gone, yeah. Well, there'll be another to replace, unfortunately.
Yeah. And my 5-year-old grandson, 2 or 3 days ago, he said, Bumpa, where are you going tonight? Because I was going to go tuck him in. And I couldn't do it because I was on the road for one of these deals. And he says, so I said, I'm going to go to a meeting. He said, Bumpa, are you going to one of those meetings where you tell people how good Alberta is? No. That's what we need.
I'll ask one. I'm just, I forgot, but how much money are we losing per week by putting money down in Ontario when we could keep it here in Alberta?
So on the royalties alone, that's notwithstanding all the tax that we send to Ottawa, that goes, of course, bring interest to Ottawa until they decide to get under conditions back to us. But on the royalties alone, on the oil and gas, it's about 2 or 3 million a weekend. So basically, the deposit has to be done on Friday afternoon at either the CIBC Edmonton or CIBC Calgary. There's 2 specific branches where the oil companies have to put their royalty for the week. And then the money sits there for the weekend. So on 700 million deposited every Friday, the CBC keep usually afloat at around 2 billion all year long in that account. And on the 700 million per Friday, they do 2 to 3 million during the weekend with it. So that's money that should be done here and should deserve to be here. I mean, there's no reason, absolutely no good common sense reason to do that with our money. It's a Quebec motto, je me souviens.
Does Canada have a treasury? Does the money go to the treasury? I've never heard of Canada having a treasury.
Well, Canada use as well the big banks to matter your, like when you receive a check from the government of Canada, you can look which bank it come from. So basically, Canada use the 5 big banks that they have control over, basically. TD, RBC, the big monsters there, and the money that they collect in the funding, in the running account, goes there. So the 5 big banks split annually about $2 billion in banking fees, the different provincial governments and all that, except Quebec.
What I want to know is where the money goes. Like, my understanding is it goes to the Crown.
Well, it's controlled by the Crown, but again, there's a float. There's a like when you pay your employees, there's a check. No, when you receive a tax return, when they give you back money that they charge you too much and don't give you interest on what they charge you too much, there's a bank, a name of the bank of it, and this is one of the big 5 banks. So at the end of the day, but no, it's not the Crown. We use the Crown wrongly, by the way. Like even here in Alberta, we speak of Crown land. Crown land is a vocabulary that has not been used in Quebec since the 60s. In Quebec, it's provincial land. We should have provincial land, which would be way more telling of what our Crown land is. So when you speak of the Crown in England has been totally detached for all government function for over a century under Queen Victoria. So they use the banking system. They control the banking system, and they help each other. This is why when the Minister of Finance goes out and say, "Hey, please seize a bank account," that she don't even have to pick up the phone, because they all do it because they're all under the control of the government because of the money rushing to their bank accounts there.
Yeah, but my understanding is. All of the banks are separate. They're privately owned. The central bank is privately owned. Where is the treasury for Canada? Like the U.S. has a treasury, and Canada has no treasury.
Well, the U.S. Treasury has the function of printing the money and all that, which is the function of the Bank of Canada. So our equivalent of Treasury here is the Bank of Canada.
But that's a privately owned corporation.
No,
Yeah, it is.
No, it's a okay. I will tell you how much is privately owned. It's as privately owned as Hydro-Quebec is privately owned in Quebec. So basically, what the Quebec government did after the 95 referendum, they privatized all of their crown corporation under their own rules of incorporation within provincial incorporation to remove it from the calculation of the equalization payment. So that's something that we can do as well in the second step, but that's something else. And the Bank of Canada is a separate entity, but like an agency. So it's still under the government of Canada. It's not privately owned It's not. Well, the bank, all banks have rehypothecation, and by the way, Brett Olin has a way better speech on that than I do. But a bank can rehypothecate. So basically, bank take your deposit, and then they can lend 1,000 times that deposit. And then they just like print the money themselves because it's electronic. They don't need to actually physically print the money. The only bank in the world that don't have any rehypothecation limit is the Bank of London. The Bank of England don't have any rehypothecation limit. So the Bank of England can take, like Carney did when he came in power. He borrowed $3 billion in the Canadian Treasury and deposited in the Bank of England, because when the Bank of England receives $3 billion, they can lend $200 billion on it if they want. There's no ceiling. So here in Canada, the big bank have a ceiling of 1,000 times, and the credit union have a ceiling of something like 100 times, so, or 10 times.
And we're. Yeah, unless there's anything else that's really pressing, I think we're getting pretty late here, so maybe we should wrap it up. Is there anything else that anyone really needs to? Okay. Well, thank you all very much for coming out. Really appreciate it. And there's two things before you go. The first one is I want you to remember that the conversation doesn't end here. Yeah. The concept of let's talk Alberta doesn't end here. It goes with you to where you're at. You got to be willing to have the conversations with people where you're at. And finally, I'd ask Ben if Ben would close in prayer.
Well, thank you, Lord, for the privilege we have to gather peacefully and without threat. And thank you, Lord, for giving us that opportunity. Thank you for that question that fell today. You're in control. You know exactly what to do, when to do it. I'm praying for wisdom, and mainly I'm praying for protection on the road for all those who came tonight. In the name of Jesus, I pray, amen.
I would like to also thank everybody who's asking questions, either on-prem and online. Thanks for people watching online. Thank you for the super chats as well. And we'll see you on the next one. I will be on Tuesday from Lacombe if you want to see me over and say hi to the stream over there and the music. No, just kidding. I'm not the music. Just the mixing for that. And we'll go from there. Thank you very much. Oh, thanks. Have a good one.